on every person in the country. Okay.
And give us the name again. The
National Center of Education Statistics.
No one's ever heard of that.
That's the U.S. Department of Ed that I worked for. It was part of my office.
Jeez.
Yep.
Yes. Absolutely. Right. Charlotte is right on. Okay, so what happened was we found out that they called it a state longitudinal data system. That means they're monitoring individuals. A longitudinal system means they're monitoring individuals, okay? Well,
the semantic warfare being waged against us is unbelievable.
Yes.
Go ahead.
Well, I found the contract for every state, okay? So they created a unique national ID, but every state had to do the same thing. So at Christmas, I put out the Greatest Christmas Gift to America 2014, and it's on Charlotte's website, abcsofdumbdown.com. So anyone could just Google ABCs of Dumb Down and put Christmas present, and it will come up how you could go to that link, and it will take you to a map of the United States. You click on your state, and your contract will come up of how they created a unique ID in your state for the government to monitor every individual. So that's the data collection, okay? That's been going on now for, let's see, in 2007 in Pennsylvania, and each state is a little bit different as far as their dates when they were committed. But in 2007, every person 28 and under, okay?
Right.
Now, everyone right now, 28 and under, because of that grant, has a unique ID that's monitored by the United States Department of Education. Okay? So this is the base of what I want everyone to understand. They have a database. They can monitor. Now, I'm going to tell you how they're going to collect all the information, okay, of what they need on every person in this dossier. Okay, so what we have is that this new reauthorization, and I'm going to start
that's Lamar Alexander's. Okay, go ahead. He is amending No Child Left Behind, which everyone has been upset about, and the teachers have been screaming about it because they're evaluating children. They're evaluating the teachers on how the children test, right,
which is very unfair.
Totally.
And then, and they're also really focusing only on the debates in that they've had 2 series of debates so far. Of course, no one really knew about them, but the debates were about these 2 issues. The testing, which is only 16 pages in this bill. And right now, it's only 400 pages, but there are pages and pages of just numbers that refer back to the original bill. Well, that bill is 1,200 pages long, okay? It's as big as Obamacare. And, of course, I had to go through all of that to see what was in there because no one is talking about the real issues. They're only talking about a very small part of the bill. So when I read through the bill, I realized that what they were doing and what this was going to do was nationalize education in the United States where the federal government would have complete control. Now, I've been saying for a couple years, it's just like Obamacare. Okay, Obamacare mandates to the individual. It's the individual mandate, right? Okay, this is what everyone was so upset about. Why were you upset about Obamacare? Why do you hate Obamacare? It's because it was the federal government telling you had to pay to do this. They were mandating to the individual. This is a states' rights issue. It went to the Supreme Court, but we lost, okay? So now there's a precedent. The precedent that the United States government can mandate to the individual. This is what this bill is all about. It is the biggest transfer of power ever.
Well, it's gone into a total dictatorship.
Absolutely. Now, this is how they're going to do it.
We're going to go through the break, Todd. Go ahead.
Okay. So the Obamacare mandate, which is a precedent that would allow the ESA reauthorization to mandate Common Core to the individual child. Now, what is Common Core? Common Core mandates that individual children have to meet individual outcomes in order to graduate. Totally takes away local control. Why? In the past, your local district created the standard. Your teacher in the classroom created the standard. Who gave your diploma to you? Who gave your diploma to you? It was your local school district.
Used to be.
This is all, it used to be. It's all moving toward a state or a national diploma.
Federalized, communized, socialized.
Absolutely. Okay. So with this mandate, okay, you have a mandate to the individual child. So that child has to meet specific outcomes in order to graduate. Totally, no more Carnegie unit, no more time. It doesn't matter how long. You can be in school till you're 30. You're not going to move on until you meet these outcomes.
Really?
Okay.
And no competition.
Okay.
No ABCs.
No competition.
Okay,
no
Charlotte,
competition.
I was going to ask that. Who sets the criteria for passing or assimilating or being mind controlled enough to graduate? Tell me this again. So, no grades.
No grades.
What it is. It's a mind control, social programming, social engineering, mass manipulation of the brains of our young children.
Well, Ben, I just want to make a point here. In 1959, American educators went to Russia to study the system. The Commission of Education sent them over there, right?
Well, you have the documentation on that. I know.
We have the documents about 100-plus pages from their report. And I've got the report, and the report, what is going in right now is exactly the same as the report that we have.
Wow.
It calls for no grades, no competition, of course, Darwin, the Soviet Polytech workforce training system, and of course, Pavlov, right? Yeah. And so we are putting in the exact system here in the United States. And people don't want to admit it. They say communism's dead. Well, no, it's not. And isms don't die, right? The Soviet Union collapsed of its own because it was so inefficient, but it was planned that way anyway. And so we're putting in the communist system of education, right, which was geared only toward public-private partnerships, which is what Reagan gave us. And that's the corporations working with the government, determining how many welders they need, how many ballet dancers, whatever. Uh-huh. It's a quota system, just like in Cuba or Korea or wherever, and your children will have no upward mobility. There will, if the child wants to be a welder, he's 9-10 years old, uh-huh, and the local shipbuilding place is training, and he wants to be a welder, but there are 10 welders they need from the local school or the charter school, because charter schools are going to be vehicle for training, right? So they need 10. But your son, he's number 11. He'll never get the training, which means his aspirations are cut right off unless he can go somewhere else. This is what's going in, and I'll let Anita go back. But I do want people to understand that this is not just a system we dreamed up out of the blue. We are copying the Soviet Polytech system.
Well, and taking it further down the road than that. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, and it will. If people want documentation on that, very easy to get. It's from the Department of Labor, and the document is called the Secretary's Commission of Achieving Necessary Skills, the SCANS, SCANS report. And in that report, it shows you and it tells you how the whole entire country is going to be primed for two main things. Number one, functional literacy. Okay, how are we going to create functional literacy? And they refer to it as 80% of the country will have functional literacy. Okay, and that's what Charlotte's been talking about for years.
75% of the graduates from high school now are functionally illiterate. So they're going to have to redefine literacy according to their agenda, which is teach people block letters and how to push, hunt, and peck on a keyboard. They're not teaching cursive or anything.
No. And, of course, the other piece besides the functional literacy, which is the B.F. Skinner that Charlotte's been talking about for years, the operant conditioning. So there's no transference of knowledge, okay? So you are confined to a certain set of pieces of information. And then the other part is you had to have the right attitudes. So there's a whole psychological aspect of re-educating the child. It's attitude adjustment. And this is where I came in when I met Charlotte, because the test in Pennsylvania had 375 questions on attitudes, values, opinions, dispositions of children, 30 questions in math, 30 questions in reading, and the government was scoring this test.
Who were taking the test? Which level children?
At that time, it was 5, 8, and 11 every year.
And did
every child.
Did they also have questions about home life?
Oh, absolutely. The whole thing.
Sure.
Absolutely.
Okay. Yeah.
Absolutely. Okay.
That's your dossier. That's a complete dossier on a child and a family, that the family really has no knowledge even exists. Go on.
No, they don't. But the key to this is that when I filed this federal complaint, I freedom of information, my own complaint, so that I could get all of the documents that the state was supplying to them to support their position. I have the test, I have the scoring, I have their evaluation that says, for instance, under citizenship, don't you want your kid to be a good citizen? And all the parents said, well, yeah. Well, what they said they were testing were levels of psychological notion of threshold by reward and punishment, and then scored it toward collectivism. Okay, and I can prove that. I mean, I can go into the test questions, but I'd rather talk about ESO. That was history, but that was the model for the NAEP, the national test. And this is what the National Center of Education Statistics is collecting. Okay, now let's go back to when I was referring to how Common Core was the individual mandate. Because with that individual mandate comes Title I. Now, Title I used to be the money that was given to poor children to learn to read. Okay? So this is really being taken and expanded. They're expanding the definition of who is poor so that the new definition is educationally deprived. So if you aren't meeting a Common Core standard, you are educationally deprived, and we can give you a Title I fund money. Now, what they're saying in this ESA, the Alexander bill, is that Title I is going to follow the child. Now, that is huge. That is huge, because in the past, the money would go to the state, right?
Yeah.
And then the state dishes out the money.
Right.
Well, under this Title I, will follow the child, means it bypasses state government. This is a huge states' rights problem.
What states' rights? They're just going right past them, and they're declaring
the Constitution.
It's gone.
It's the Constitution. Right. There is no, if the federal government can mandate to the individual and the money is going directly to the child.
Well, is it going to become a federal government communist school system? The states be damned. It doesn't matter. They're going to run this through.
It doesn't matter. Right. But,
that is the goal. I mean, but if you go back, you keep going back and finding the history, that was the goal in 1934. I want to repeat it again. The Carnegie Corporation, in the little book, Conclusions and Recommendations, said, we will use the schools. I want people to listen. To change America's capitalist, not the kind we have now, pure capitalist economic system, right? And in some cases to take your land. Now people can say, oh, that's 1934, you know, she's an old lady, she loves her old research. Oh, excuse me. Every 5 years, Carnegie would put money into the Education Commission of State. They're the ones who funded the National Assessment. They started the National Governors Association. It was Mark Tucker out of my office when I was in the Department of Ed, who Carnegie took on board and started the Education and the Economy up in Rochester, New York. Hillary Clinton was involved, then Bush